At this point in our lives, most of us have probably attended a funeral. I'm assuming that the majority of us have attended an American funeral when we did this. And so I was curious to see a culture that was entirely different than our own and how they do funeral practices and how they look at death and dying. And so I decided to look into the Japanese because I really don't know too much about the Japanese culture in general. And so I thought that it would be very interesting to learn about how they look at this. So to begin with, similar to U.S. traditions, Japanese normally have a formal gathering called a funeral. Most of the Japanese traditions in general, similar to U.S., have a funeral, a wake, cremation, burial with family members, and then a periodic memorial service. Almost all Japanese are cremated. Literally like 99%. For the funeral, the body is prepared as such right here, in formal clothing, normally in white, and similar to American culture, they use makeup to make the body look a little more presentable. Not similar to American culture, they place items that the deceased loved, such as candy or cigarettes or alcohol. Maybe they collected coins. They place that in the casket with them to take with them to the afterlife. For Japanese people, funerals are one of the most expensive of all in the world. So a lot of Japanese people are increasingly looking for alternative methods, such as ash scattering in the ocean or someplace that the deceased really loved to be, or just doing smaller funerals. So the majority of Japanese people practice Buddhism. And so at funerals, they normally are in Buddhist style. So they have a priest that comes in and conducts a sutra prayer during the ceremony. And the people that are attending the funeral tend to bring these beads with them, and they're called juzu beads, and they are to honor their dead loved one. They're like prayer beads, similar to like a rosary for a Catholic in America. At the funeral, each guest is expected to pay a condolence fee, of which they bring with them. That's with their beads. The condolence fee is to give to the family members of the deceased, and the amount that they give increases with how close their relation was to the deceased. Upon departure, each guest receives a gift which has the value of 25% to 50% of the condolence money that they gave. Also similar to U.S. culture, a lot of guests do bring flowers to honor the deceased. Also, the attendees are expected to dress formally, women often in a black kimono, and men often in a black tuxedo. For the cremation, the family members are actually called after the funeral to pick the bones out of the ashes. And they do this with chopsticks, which I found was very interesting. And actually, this is where this is the only time when two people can use chopsticks to touch the same item at the same time. It's considered a faux pas outside of funerals because it brings on the memory of a deceased loved one. So I found that very interesting. Often the ashes are buried with family members in plots that they already have. So, such as this one right here. The funeral is almost always held the day after the wake. And a priest conducts a suture prayer again and offers incense, again, just as with the wake and the gathering of the wake. I also found it interesting that during the funeral, the deceased is given a new name to prevent their return if their name is called. The new name given is an obsolete word to avoid its utterance. The Japanese believe that their new name, they'll now be known by that in the afterlife, as they're trying to get to Buddha.